we're talking about daily follow-up, having a schedule, lead gen. And then the third thing is, it really brings these two together is, when you think about, okay, top agents that year after year after year are consistent and hitting their goals. I'm less interested in the agent that has a really good year and then you never hear from them again. But it's like, when I look to evidence of success, I want to find who are the agents in the marketplace that have stood the test of time, that have been in the up market, the down market, but they continue to thrive no matter what. And this last trait, I think, is evident in those people. Maybe not so much the flash in the pans, the ones that seem like overnight successes that are here today and gone tomorrow, but the ones that stand the test of time have this third trait, and that is they have ridiculous lead follow-up traits. So talk to me about lead follow-up. How do you pursue it? Like, what does it mean to you? What did you do to really exemplify lead follow-up?
Yeah, everyone should write down in their written calendar, fortune is in the follow-up. Put that on your bathroom mirror. Like you said, some agents can get really good at lead generation and they're getting some quick deals, but it's like they can burn out quick on that. They have a great year because the way the market was, or maybe they got a certain lead source that wasn't too saturated in their market, then it got saturated and they're like, what do I do? And they just like kind of fall away. It's those that develop the first two traits we talked about, but the third one that ties them all in for a long-lasting, successful career is lead follow-up. And it's being relentless with it. It's, really following up with the person until they either buy with you, sell with you, or they die. It's like, it's that mentality. Like, this is the long game. If I'm going to be a real estate agent for 30 years, I'm going to follow up with this person for 30 years until they do business with me. Now, of course, if they say, stop calling me, stop calling them type of deal. You don't want to be aggressive. You don't want to come off slimy. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about, being like, if you're a used car salesman, good for you. Good job hustling. Check out real estate because it's a much better career financially. But, the persona that used cars salesmen have, don't be that. So it's just really staying in touch on a consistent basis and trying to always be thinking, how can I add value? And when you do it right, it really should be only 3 to 5 years of having to grind away on your real estate business. And then in that period of time, you do have this pipeline that's mature, that's built out, that really kind of takes care of itself after a period of time. Now you still gotta, water those leads and nurture them so they can, flourish, and then you can eventually reap it. But man, after probably 2 years of consistent prospecting, I got to the point where I had a couple thousand sellers in my database that I had talked to previously. And they said, sure, when we go to sell the home, we're open to interviewing you. We're not obligated to another agent. I got to that through a script that I would use. And they would go in my nurture database. I'd put them up on my VIP system. And it was a systematic way to follow up with them, mostly phone calls. So I was mostly just still calling via phone to convert them. But it would be some text messages, some emails, and then some direct mail. So they were seeing from me on a consistent basis. I mean, if you can get to the point where you got a couple thousand sellers in your database that were expired or for sale by owner or whatever, and they start to know you, remember you, they're probably going to list with you when they're ready. And it's like, if you've been following up with someone for 2 years, and when you call, they're like, oh, hey, what's up, AJ? Yeah, not ready to sell yet. Okay, cool. You hang up. And you were that diligent with your follow-up, why would they go to Google and try to find an agent that they have no relationship with, no contact with? They're going to do what's easiest, and that's going to be to list with the person that's been following up with them long term. So, and it's fun. Like, I don't love prospecting until I got to that point where I was essentially prospecting my database, which was just expired leads that I was nurturing. And then it became easy.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, I did an expired campaign for a lot of years, 7 years, I think, where I was diligently prospecting expireds. And the vast majority, over 75% of the expired listings that I listed and sold were usually people that we were following up with for 12 plus months. So that initial call that morning it expires, that's low hanging fruit, and it's like a race to that fruit. But I found the majority of my business was the consistent follow up for people that decided, hey, they weren't going to sell again. They tried it. They were going to come back on the market down the road, and we stayed in touch with them until they were ready to do that. I'm going to take a little bit of a different take on this. I agree with everything you said, and definitely did a lot of that myself. But you said something earlier about, the agent that grinds away for 30 years. And we probably all know an agent like that. And we probably don't look to that agent that we're thinking about in our head as like, that's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. And I said earlier, you don't have to be. Like there's proven paths, there's models where if you grind for 5 years, you do your prospecting, you're diligent, you treat it like a business, you can build a career. And the reason that is because if you prospect this way and you're starting today from zero, or you're restarting today and you haven't done any of these things right, you can put the time in to prospect, to get the business. But once you get the business and do the deal, you now have a client. And while you're building your lead database, you're also building a client database. And if the follow-up is right with those clients, you're going to get, repeat business from them. You're going to get referrals from them. And I think that's an area. One of the things they say in business is sometimes your initial success keeps you from your ultimate success. And where I bring that into this, equation is you may be really successful at prospecting for leads. And that's your initial success. And that's awesome. And that's great. But don't let that rob you of your ultimate success, which is continuing to do those things that you're good at to generate business, but also nurturing a client database and getting that repeat referral business, which is a much easier lift. It's a much higher conversion rate. And when I think about some of the really greats that I know out there, the 60% of their annual business is from their client database. And it doesn't have to be huge, guys. It could be 1,000 people or less. I had a guy that taught a 500 person database or less. And if you get more than that, you have to replace somebody from that. So you work that client database and you give real value. When I think of the word follow-up, I immediately think of a pet peeve of mine, which is just checking in. Don't ever be a just checker inner. It's the worst thing to be. Nobody wants to be just checked in on. There's no value transfer. You want to be calling people with value. So if you feel like you've been prospecting and you have this database, whether it's leads or past clients, but you're not getting anything out of them or you're not moving them forward, think about what it is you're calling to follow up with. What value do you have? I'm getting ready to shoot a video on, when we go on a listing appointment and, when we don't walk away from the listing in that moment, what are we doing to follow up with the listing in the hours and days thereafter to get that listing? Because a lot of people don't list in the initial appointment. And if you're not doing things that are following up that are value driven, what are you doing? So I think you had said, be value adding all the time. To me, that's a critical component of following up with people.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add on that topic?
No, I was just laughing about, no one wants to be just checked in. It's so true. If you ever get that call, it's like, man, like, why are you even calling me and wasting my time? And then you stop answering that person's calls because like you don't want to be just checked in on. But at the same time, you do got to like ask for the appointment. I find a lot of times when people are prospecting, lead generating, they're doing a great job making the contacts, but they never like ask for the appointment. So when you are calling and doing follow up, you do want to think, how can I add value? But you also got to have an ask in there. It's like, what I got this from you initially, John, seeing you as an example in our market and also Lars, but the idea of like these client appreciation parties, it's like, why not take your expired leads that you're nurturing or any lead that you're nurturing and just invite them to your client appreciation parties? It's such a great way to add value. So you can call and say, hey, just want to give you a call. We're having our spring client appreciation party at the local minor league baseball field, whatever. Want to invite you because I know you're not past client yet, but hopefully when you are ready to sell, we do business together. So I want to invite you down to the ball game, let them respond, whatever. And then, hey, just out of curiosity, do you know anyone looking to buy or sell? My business is largely based on referrals, or something like that. So you have some kind of ask, and you don't just become a professional conversationalist. So I think that's a key component to all this. Make sure that you're always asking for the appointment in the right way.
Yeah, client event parties were huge for us. So just to kind of recap these three traits is number one, follow a daily schedule. Number two, lead generate daily. And number three, they have ridiculous follow-up. And I promise you, if you're really assessing like where you are as a scale of 1 to 10 on these three categories, if your business is not where it needs to be, it's because you're scoring low in one or more of these areas. And it's an immediate fix that you can put into practice today. Get yourself a schedule. AJ and I recommend on paper, time block the critical activities, and then do them. It's not rocket science, guys. That's one of the things I love about this industry is that, people can have an amazing life-changing success and a rewarding career here, and they don't need a doctorate degree from Harvard. It's just not that complicated, but we got to be willing to do the work. AJ, when you think about these three traits, are there any books maybe that you would recommend that might come to mind that would help somebody in one of these three areas or all of these three areas?
Yeah, a couple books come to mind, and I was thinking too, as you were talking, that as you just did the recap of the three traits, in my mind, the first thing that I thought of was, it's so simple. People are going to dismiss these three things. Well, it's like, oh, well, I already know that. That's like the one of the most dangerous things you can think or say is, I already know that. And these are very simple traits. And we always say success is simple, just not easy. It does take hard work. It's just that simple. I love what you said. Rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how you're doing in each one, and just work on those three. Quarterly review, how are you doing on each trait? Review it, improve it. If you just do that, rinse and repeat, you'll be well on your way to financial freedom, financial independence. So the books that came to mind, the first one's a really old school one. I love it. It's inspiring to me. It's called, I think the exact title is How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success with Selling. It's something like that. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. Something like that. The cover's like black with, I think, orange or red lettering. This book was written in like the 20s or 30s. Are you familiar with that one, John?
Oh, I actually wrote it down. I rarely is a book mentioned that I haven't heard of, so I wrote that one down.
Yeah, this one's old school. This one, I mean, the guy, it's been years since I read it, but it's like the 20s and 30s. This guy who basically changed his life through selling. So a really cool book.
What's so cool about the old school though is that like there is nothing new, guys.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing out there brand new that you're going to learn that nobody else knows that's going to be your direct path to success.
Yeah.
There might be something new that you bolt on, but it's bolted onto these principles, these traits that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man.
Yeah. And then another one that I always have my team read would be Success Principles, Jack Canfield. I love that book. He's one of the co-authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul. If you've never read one of those books, they're just really easy to read, inspiring, motivating. And the way he chops up all the success principles, I think there's like 78. It's a really large book, but each success principle is only a handful of pages, so it's easy to consume. More than anything, I want to recommend some books that are more just going to help your mindset, help you actually take action, because what we covered here today is really as simple as it is. It's just, are you going to take the action that's required to achieve the success that you're looking for based on these three traits? And if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to achieve it. I'll just give one third book, and this is one that I think is recommended a lot, but I got to recommend it again. Fanatical Prospecting, and we're actually doing an event in San Antonio this July where the author of that book will be there as a guest speaker. So if you guys want to check out that conference, let us know. There's a link in the description. You can sign up to talk to one of us, and we'll make sure that you get a ticket to that event on us. But Fanatical Prospecting, great book.
Jeb Blount is going to be there speaking. You're going to be speaking as well, so you'll be backstage with him, which will be awesome. Yeah. That's a great book. I mean, I make everybody that works, at my real estate companies read that book. Fanatical Prospecting is like a staple. And for those that maybe struggle with prospecting, I think what that book will give you is an understanding of the level of intensity and intention that you need around prospecting. So it really helps people kind of gain that if they don't have one of those already as a basis. And then I also like it, maybe if you're not a reader or you struggle with reading and it's not something you do a lot. I like Miracle Morning too by Hal Elrod because it's written in a fable format. It's very easy to read, but I think it'll get your mind right about, what is success going to look like for you and how do you start your morning in order to set yourself up for success, which I think is very important.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome, man.
Cool. I confirmed it is How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. It's by Frank Becker, and it's a yellow cover with red font. And
awesome, man. I'll check that out for sure.